So how do you know if it's worth patenting your invention? It's an important question to answer early because the window to file a patent application, it closes pretty early on. So don't delay the answering to this question. Don't wait until you have money to do it in order before you actually start seriously considering it. Have conversations with your co-founders because you know what, the money part, you can find the money if it's worth doing, but the first question you need to know is it worth doing? So I put together these thoughts to hopefully help you have that conversation and with yourself and your co-founders. A couple things at the outset. If your product, I'm assuming the United States is your market. So if your product is easily reverse engineerable, and what I mean by that is you launch and someone could buy your product, take it apart, see how it's made, and then put together and sell a copycat product. So if that describes your product, then a utility patent, which is what we're talking about here, is highly more valuable. It's much more likely to be highly valuable than if your product is something where it's very unlikely that someone's going to be able to get to market anytime soon, if at all. In that latter situation, it might still be worth having a utility patent, but it's not quite as obvious a benefit as if your product is easily reverse engineerable. That's where utility patents often really deliver a lot more value. Second question is, if you are in a field, if your innovation is something where a lot of people are working on it and it's like a race to get to the patent office, it is first come, first served. So don't delay your filing if that second situation describes you, because while you're thinking about it, someone else is filing it and they're going to get the patent. So in both of those scenarios, I would encourage you to file early, and because you're more likely to have higher value just because of the nature of those situations. All right, so then the next thing you need to know to figure out, is it worth it? And by the way, if you have co-founders, you need to have this conversation with your co-founders because you might not all be in the same page. And that is, what do you need the patent to do for you? Don't let someone else tell you whether the patent is worth it, because unless they know what's in your head, they won't know whether it's worth it to you, and all they'll be telling you is if it's worth it to them. So sit down and talk to your co-founders, talk to yourself, and really figure out, define for yourself, what do you need the patent to do? And be honest with yourself. There's all kinds of reasons that people get patents. Some of them are because they just want to see their name on a patent. I have heard that more than once. That is not an uncommon reason. It's a perfectly legitimate reason. There is no right or wrong reason to want to get a patent. And I encourage you to be honest with yourself and your co-founders, because that will help you know that you are making the right decision. Because again, if you're making a decision based on what you think you should be interested in, but you're actually interested in something else, maybe the patent ends up delivering what you think you should be interested in, and it's not worth it to you because that wasn't really why you wanted it. So be honest. All right, so what do you plan to do with the patent? Might be because you just want to see your name on a patent, or you want your kid's name on a patent, and he's helping you or she's helping you invent it. It might be that you're raising investors. It might be that you are interested in licensing the technology to another company who can take it to market, or to other companies in other jurisdictions, in other countries or other industries. Another good reason to do it. You might be doing it to keep copycats away, to stop counterfeiters, or to stop copycats. And sort of maintain your specialness as far as the product online. All of those are good reasons. And patents work well. We're talking utility patents work well for all of those. Design patents also, to a certain extent. Almost the same, a little bit different, but design patents also are part of the strategy, potentially. Primarily, I'm talking about utility patents. So now that you kind of have that, and you've hopefully got a meeting of the minds with your co-founders, there's an imagine exercise I'd like you to do. And I encourage you, I like to work, and sketch things out on paper. If that's not you, whatever tool works for you. But what I'd like you to do is imagine that your company launches, and you are the exclusive seller and maker of this product. And so you look at the size of your market in the United States, look at the price point that you plan to sell, and do some rough calculations of your first year sales every year up to year 5. If you are the only one reaching that market, you can maintain your price point, and how big is that market. Then I'd like you, once you have that number, to do the same exercise, but consider that you are not the only one, that you launch and within however long you think is realistic, a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, you've got copycats, and the copycats multiply because that is what tends to happen. What do your first year revenues look like? What do your year 2, 3, 4, 5 year revenues look like? Understanding that when you're fighting copycats, you generally, if it really is the same product, you can what often happens is the price wars. You've invested to develop this, and they have not. And so, you've got the sort of race to the bottom of everyone undercutting one another's price. So in those two scenarios, if you can just jot down rough numbers, doesn't matter if they're rough, this is to help you imagine. And I mean, this is realistic because this is how it works. The patent is a barrier to the competition. So once you know those two numbers, subtract the smaller one from the larger one. That is the difference. That is your delta. That is the return on investment that the patent needs to deliver. And by the way, of course, if it also is giving you a marketing, that's another reason people get patents, is because they are marketing themselves as the industry leader. All of that is good. You can do the same exercise using those numbers, although I think when you're talking revenue, it's a little, in terms of sales, it's a little bit easier to do that exercise. So the point is, now you've got these two numbers, you've got the delta between them, and that is the return on investment of having a utility patent. So then I would like you to consider, for the sake of this exercise, that the cost of getting the patent is $50,000. I'm not saying your patent is going to cost $50,000. I just want it to be a big enough number that you can fully explore and protect your patent rights. And that's also a nice round number. So if you're looking for, I would encourage you to plan at least a 5 times return on investment of that $50,000, which means that if your delta is $250,000 and up, you are getting a 5 times ROI, and perhaps more, because 50,000 years might not be 50,000. If your ROI, if your delta is less than $250,000, then you might want to consider other types of protection, maybe a design patent strategy, definitely trademarks, and at least then you'll know that perhaps the ROI is not going to be huge for the utility patent. So I encourage you to do this exercise, to talk it over with your co-founders, to be honest with yourself, and hopefully that will help you decide to make some investments early on in protecting that exclusivity. That is the most real way that I can think of to help you decide whether a patent is worth it to you and your business. All right, so anyway, happy to help in any way I can. Please feel free to reach out to us. Check our website for any other hopefully useful information and videos. And again, it's Catherine Cavella from IP Works Law. Thanks so much.